are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's type welcome to the office. This is Lagos Talks 91.3. You do know that by now. It's 31 minutes now past the hour of 4. My name is Olaegbe. With me today is a special guest. As you know, the office is proudly brought to you by Lagos Talks 91.3 and the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM. Every Thursday from 4:30 p.m. we talk about career paths, the office as it concerns you, or as an HR professional, as a business owner, and, just general behavior and organization behavior, basically. Today, we'll be talking about the do's and don'ts of a world-class resume. Now, we've all been there. We've all applied for jobs, and sometimes we don't get feedback, and we wonder, is there something wrong with my application? Do these people know who I am? How dare they not get back to me? Sometimes it could actually just be your resume. And as you know, you shouldn't, with the way the world is changing right now, you do not need to find your competition in the next person. You do not need to find your competition in your office. You find your competition on a global standard, on the global scene. All right, because the world is getting there. All right. And to get that world-class job, that world-class recognition, or that world-class celebrated career, it starts with a world-class resume. And that's why on the office today, we have a special guest who is joining us. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Inner Ring Engineering and Logistics Services Limited. He's passionate about working with people to improve stakeholders' value. He has combined working experience of over 21 years in management, sales, operations, and HR functions in both startups and growing organizations. He has attended several trainings covering areas in management, leadership, human resources, etc., within and outside Nigeria, of course. Notable among them is the Middle Management Training in Administrative Staff College of India and the Senior Management Program SMP 32 in the Lagos Business School, that's LBS. Now, he's also an accomplished business leader, passionate about motivating, educating, and mentoring others on how to become successful in their chosen career of choice. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have the Managing Director and CEO of Inner Ring Engineering and Logistics Services Limited, Mr. Emmanuel Olaegbe. Welcome to the office, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, listeners. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming through today. CV's resume. It is about telling the world who you are through writing. And sometimes it doesn't matter who you are. If you cannot articulate into a formal application, you lose many chances out there in the job market. But for the sake of clarity, what is a resume?
Okay, a resume, the word resume itself is taken from the French word, which is to sum up.
Okay.
It's a document that sums up the experience, the work life, and all the skills of an individual.
Okay.
For a prospective applicant to a willing employer. However, I need to make some further clarification. This part of the world, we sometimes interchange the word resume and curriculum vitae. However, in a lot of places, there are two different things entirely.
Okay.
A curriculum vitae is also a word from a Latin word, which is a course of life. Now, it is a more detailed document that provides information on prospective applicants. So I just needed to make that clarification. But I think in this part of the world, we use both of them using them together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So let's talk about the standard information that must be on a resume. Do we have any standard information that must be on a resume? If yes, what are they?
Okay. Based on my own experience, I think I'll classify them into 6 major areas of information.
Okay, 6.
The first one is your contact details.
Okay.
Every resume is supposed to start with the contact details, where you provide basic information about yourself. Where you can be located, your email addresses, and all those relevant information.
Okay.
The second part of a resume is what we call the introduction. Here you have a summarized profile of the applicant. It's not usually too long, but it gives an idea of who owns the resume. And I usually advise people you need to put up a very good introduction about yourself. But because a lot of people that screen CVs might not even have the opportunity to go through all the other information if the information on your introduction is not very relevant. The third part of a resume is your work experiences, where you've worked before, the accomplishment you have had, as it relates to the job you're applying for. We also have the fourth part, which is the educational qualification of the applicant, which is also extremely important to fit into the kind of job you're looking for. Then we also have the skills required and the knowledge for the job. And lastly, we classify the sixth one as just other informations. There you can have quite a number of information you want. But generally, this is what the format most resume follows.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so what then should not be on a resume?
Well, there are quite a number of things, actually, that shouldn't be there. For instance, I will usually tell people hobbies and interests. A lot of people make that mistake of including them in a resume. I usually advise, if it doesn't add any value to the job you're applying to, please do away with it.
Yeah.
Another thing people trying to show off is that they put their GPA. For instance, I have a second class upper and all that. At the point of presenting your CV, it is always not necessary, except if the job requirement requires you to indicate it on your resume. Another thing that is extremely very important is that you should avoid using information that are discriminatory or about your person as a person. So I would try and explain that better. When you talk about discriminatory, usually as an employer, there are things that shouldn't allow you to discriminate against people in terms of age, in terms of origin or your nationality, gender biases, and all the likes. Now, why it is advised you don't put it there, that some subconsciously or consciously, a lot of people that screen CVs usually have some biases, which they exhibit in terms of when they're screening. So if you put those kind of information, you might find a situation whereby some of those bias will come to play and you'll be screened out. So I would usually advise prospective applicants to try and do away with some of this highlighted information that I've just talked about.
All right. Fair enough. So do you think there is a one-size-fits-all resume, or should it always be updated based on the role being applied for?
Obviously, yes. You should have what they call a prototype resume. And from that prototype, for every job you're applying for, you might need to tweak the CV to reflect or to highlight some of the key skills that are required for that particular job. So it is always advisable that from time to time, people tweak their CV in line with the job application they're applying for.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So let's talk about the specific details that should be emphasized on a resume. What are these specific details that must be emphasized?
Okay.
If we can't put, the CGPA, what are some areas that we might want to toot our horn to let the hiring managers know that we're actually the best person for the job?
Okay, there are three major parts that should be emphasized. One is the experience you have acquired over time that qualifies you enough to apply for the job you're applying for. Okay. I think you should take out time extensively to try and exhibit that in your resume. Another thing that should be emphasized is, of course, your qualifications that make you qualified for the job. So if the job is saying, for instance, you must have a master's degree, for instance, it then means it will be worthwhile to exhibit the fact that I have a master's, which then makes me qualified for that role.
Okay.
And of course, skills requirements. For every job, the skills that are required to make you qualified for that job.
All right.
And those things are usually clearly stipulated in the job description for the job.
Okay.
So you're advised to also try and exhibit those skills that are relevant to the particular job you're applying for. For me, those three things are extremely very critical, and they should be focused on when you're putting your resume together.
Okay, so let's talk about the sequence in which the CV or the resume should be arranged. How exactly does it flow? What is the standard structure, arrangement, or layouts?
Okay, generally, we have about 4 different kind of layouts for resumes. The most popular is the chronological sequence, where you, in revised manner, put in your work experience in terms of the most recent to the last.
Okay.
That's the kind of one you find out a lot of people use.
Okay.
The other one is the functional kind of resume. In that kind of resume, the focus is always more on the skills that will be required for the job. So in trying to put the resume together, what is mostly showcased is more of the skills and more emphasized. The third kind of sequence we have is the one we call a target resume.
Okay.
And those are the ones we talked about when there's a specific kind of job, when jobs are structured deliberately to target that particular job. And of course, the last one is a combination of all of the three. So you could have a combination of so many ones put together into one particular sequence. So for me, those are the 4 sequences I'm aware that a lot of job seekers should place emphasis on.
Okay, so some very experienced professionals have a resume of up to 10 pages. Well, you talked about emphasizing your qualifications, and sometimes it might be a lot of Someone like yourself, you've been in this field for over 21 years. You've worked in different fields, different sectors for over 21 years. If you were applying for a new job, it's going to take a while to actually, compress those your experiences into an approved 2-page. So what do you do then? What truly is the standard number of pages?
Okay. Truly, if you're going to follow the real pattern of a resume, it shouldn't be more than about 2-3 pages.
Okay.
However, like I said, in this part of the world, curriculum vitae is also assumed to be a resume. And curriculum vitae then provide the leverage to provide as many information as possible.
Are you talking about a cover letter?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm talking about, because when you're putting a resume together, as much as you want to limit it to as short as possible, you also cannot avoid essential information to be imputed into those resumes. So, for like you said, for some of us, in trying to put our resume together, we've tried so much, we've expunged those irrelevancies. But sometimes, just because of where you're coming and the journey you've had so far, sometimes it can be a little much longer than expected. So, for me, I would think depending on how relevant the information is, that should determine the kind of information you have on your resume. I wouldn't want to prescribe any particular number, but normally for younger, upwardly mobile people that are just getting into jobs, I think your resume should be concise, and it should be shorter, preferably maybe 2 or 3 pages, so that reading can be easier.
What are your thoughts on people who add their photographs?
Oh, okay. Okay, those are some of the mistakes a number of applicants made. One of the things you'll find out is that a lot of people focus too much on the design than on the content.
Okay.
And I can assure you the designs are not what gets the job.
Okay.
The content does. So one of the first things we should avoid is, one, photograph also fall into the categories of things I call discriminatory and personal information. Because a man can just see your face and for whatever reason, the bias just sets in and just doesn't like you.
Yeah.
So I would usually advise people it is absolutely not necessary. There are a few things I also consider mistakes that a lot of applicants put into the CV. A CV is supposed to be very readable. it is supposed to be concise, like I said earlier. And therefore, one, put your CV out in the most simple form of English you can put. You're not trying to impress anybody by putting some very difficult words that people will have to go and check the dictionaries to try and find out. You also do not need to use some very creative or very animated fonts. Yeah. It just makes the whole thing difficult for the reader to assimilate. So those are few mistakes I've seen a lot of job applicants make in the course of trying to apply. So we focus more on the creativity. I just want it to look beautiful. Sincerely, that doesn't really count much. What should count much is the content of what you put into your CV. For instance, an employer will want to see your accomplishments. They want to see data if possible. So for instance, I'm a salesperson and I'm saying one of my accomplishments is that I have done or increased our sales by 100% from a volume of so to so. It would normally catch the attention of a person screening your CV. Yeah. So I would usually tell people, let's focus more on the content and less on the design. And in that content, we should make it as readable, as simple, as straightforward, without missing out the important information.
What about your gender?
You shouldn't.
Shouldn't put your gender in.
Like I said earlier. Yeah, because those are personal information. And people also, even though people are not supposed to discriminate against that. But why do you want to put something that could trigger off a bias? Yeah. So, and is the gender actually needed for the job? Except in this part of the world where some employers make the mistake of putting that ladies preferable. Those are discriminated adverts that should not be encouraged. Yeah. So usually I don't encourage people to put their genders in.
So how important are cover letters to an application alongside a resume?
Well, I think it depends on a number of things. Some organization will probably tell you, I need a cover letter and an application. Some will just tell you, I just need your resume or your CV, as it were. So depending on what they need, I would think we should just give them what they want. I don't think we should reinvent the wheel and try to do things that are not requested for. Because most times you find that the cover letter is a summarized form of a profile of the individual, which is already indirectly or directly captured in the CV.
What about your address? Should your house address be on your CV?
Definitely. Because why I said not necessarily your house address, your contact address. So if your address is your contact address, yes, definitely it should be there. And that's why I said the contact details when I started out. So for instance, if they want to send you a letter, if that is your contact address, then you definitely will have to put your... Yes. For instance, you would not be encouraged to put your existing employer's address on your contact address or your official email address on your contact address. Those are not encouraged at all.
All right. So that would open up the phone lines for people to go on and ask questions as regards CVs or resumes, how to get a world-class resume and some of the do's and don'ts. Do you have questions? Are you unsure about something that he said, or would you like to buttress a point here? You can call the phone lines 01-515-0913, 01-515-1913, or 0809-222-0913, 0809-191-3913, or 0809-234-5913. You can also send us a message on WhatsApp 0809-234-5913 or tweet at Lagos Talks 913. Let's go to the phone lines. Lagos Talks. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening.
What's your name?
I just tuned in. I just heard about resume. I think about it's the right way to send it. I don't really know. What I've always wanted to ask about resume is that is it proper when people don't put their, especially for female, or if I male and female, they don't put their date of birth in their resume. Because a lot of people, because me, I put everything. I put my status. If I'm married, I put it. Some people don't put it that they are married. Especially for female, I've seen it a lot. They won't put that status if they are married, and they won't also put their date of birth. Is it right? Is it supposed to be like that? Because me, because I'm in leadership position, so when I see series like that, I just look at the people. I just have the perception that this person is a very serious person.
Uh-oh.
Well, I see that people do it a lot. So is it really right for it to be like that? That's my question.
Thank you. Okay, we have someone from a leadership position who finds that irritating.
If you were, like you said, you weren't with us when we started out, I did say clearly that you should avoid putting discriminatory information or personal information about yourself on your CV, which include date of birth. Because age is one of those areas that you cannot discriminate against. So it is obviously very right for those people that do not indicate their age or their gender or whatever of the CV, because the focus of any particular resume is actually on the job experience and the ability of the prospective applicants to deliver on the job. So it is very right for people that do not put it there.
Okay, so no age and marital status should be out of it as well.
It is not necessary for the job.
It's not necessary. Yeah. Same with hobbies and interests.
Yes, it is absolutely
so
necessary.
We have date of birth should not be there. Marital status should not be there. Gender should not be there. Hobbies, interests should not be there. A photograph of yourself attached to your CV or any part of your application should not be there as well. Your CGPA should not be there.
Except if the job advert clearly request for it.
Okay. And there are many like that. There's some jobs like that. Actually.
Yeah, very.
Okay, so we also talked about cover letters. Can we dabble into that just a little bit, or we should take more calls first?
Let's take more calls.
All right. Lagos Talks.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Ike.
Okay, Ike. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. So, good afternoon, Mr.
Emmanuel is the name.
Mr. Emmanuel.
Mr. Emmanuel. I think I agree with you when it comes to the age not being necessary on the CV, but I think it's more like a country or region-specific thing. I know in America, it's not needed. It's actually discouraged to put your age in the CV if you're applying for that in an American company. But I think in the UK, they don't really care, just like Nigeria. I may be wrong, but I think you are very right. You know, a lot of the countries in North America don't like you putting your age in the CV.
All right. Thank you for calling Lagos Talks.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, Michelle.
Welcome.
Good evening, Emmanuel.
Good evening.
My name is Efe.
Your name is?
It's the second time I'm calling a radio show.
Okay. Join the conversation.
So I agree with a lot of the things that Emmanuel has said. I just have a bit of reservation about mentioning hobbies and interest.
Hobbies and interest. Okay.
So I work in a remote IT role, and a lot of my hobbies have been IT related. And because of those experience from and hobbies from IT related hobbies, the employer I currently work for was able to evaluate. So while I wouldn't say it's not needed, if your hobbies and interests align with the roles that you're applying for, I think it makes sense to include those in the resume. Aside from that, every other thing about keeping your date of birth, marital status, local government, and gender out of it makes a lot of sense.
All right.
But my question for Emmanuel will be for Nigerian employers. I mean, there's a limit that they go to. So, for example, you see a role that is an entry-level role, and they say age limit is 28. How are you going to get around that if you don't have your date of birth on your resume?
All right. Thanks for calling.
Okay. I would just like to address your first question or your first comment. If you listened to me earlier, I said I would encourage it not to be put in your resume. However, if it will enhance your job applicability, then it should be included. I think that's the point you missed out. If your interest or your hobby would help you to
is
be able
relatable to the job,
then you should include it. For Nigeria, like you said, yes, unfortunately, we have a situation where age is specified. In those cases, I've also said you will probably not have a choice but to include your age. However, what we're talking about here is best practice and
world class
standards. Because age is actually a discriminatory issue all over the world. A man or a woman is not supposed to be discriminated from getting a job by virtue of his age. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, it's still something we're still battling with. So a lot of employers will have to still come to terms to the fact that this is not an acceptable international practice. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's take more calls. 0809 191 3913. Someone here is asking state of origin, nationality. Do you need that?
You don't.
All right.
At all. Those are things that I've said earlier that will create a lot of bias and discrimination. I mean, why would where you come from in Nigeria determine whether you get a job? So I would advise you try and refrain from it, except if the employer, for instance, says, I need to know, or the job is for people from a particular state.
Maybe
then
it's
it becomes
an empowerment program or something.
Then it becomes relevant. But if it's not, it shouldn't be part of your resume.
All right. Lagos Talks. Oh, so sorry. 015150913. 015151913. You can also call 0809 234 5913. 0809 191 3913. Let's take this last call. Lagos Talks. Good evening.
Good evening, Michelle.
Welcome. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Emmanuel on the road.
Emmanuel on the road. Okay, join the conversation.
Okay, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, that has gone out of the way. Then the second thing is, I think it's more or less an addition to what your guest has said.
Okay.
It's advisable to have multiple CVs and align your CV in line with the role that you are applying for. If you have a sales related role, it's necessary, in my opinion anyway, to put in your...
Hello? Oh, Emmanuel, are you there? Oh, I think we lost this caller here. We have to wrap it up. It's almost 5 p.m. Mr. Emmanuel Olaegbe, thank you so much for coming in today. We do appreciate you. And I guess a lot of people have to review their CVs now and do away with all these things and focus on their skills, a proper introduction, their qualification, the educational background, their job experience, and all of that really, and of course, especially the contact details.
Okay, thank you for having me, Michelle. I just want to round up by saying that your CV is a marketing tool to get an opportunity for a job. So I want to encourage a lot of applicants to spend more time in trying to put their CVs together. Because I've seen people that they've not updated their CV in the last 5 years.
Ooh.
And you expect jobs to come and meet you. Now, no matter how skillful, no matter how intelligent you are, you might never get that opportunity if you don't present the right CV. I think that would be my closing remark. It's been a pleasure being with you. I hope we can change this country for the better.
Right. Thank you so much. Coming up next at the top of the hour, which is now, is critical thinking. But of course, I'm going to be announcing the home win giveaway winners right about now. This has been The Office. My guest today is the Managing Director, CEO of Inner Ring Engineering and Logistics Services Limited. His name is Mr. Emmanuel Olaegbe. with over 21 years of experience. He was our guest today. Thank you so much for coming in today.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Don't go anywhere. The conversation never stops. That's what happens when you're tuned into the live drive with Michelle. This is Lagos Talks 91.3. Stay with us.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's talk.